Hello, I'm Mel Crafting and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be making a Starry birthday shaker card. If you'd like more information on this card or any of my other crafty projects, head over to my blog at melcrafting.blogspot.com. So what inspired this card was the use of the stars and moons background, which I made, and have a video on how I made it, which I'll put a link to in the top right hand corner. Now I wanted to make a shaker card with this, so I'm going to cut out a rectangle window using a die cut and my scissors Big Shot. Now I always place the cutting side of the die cuts up on my cutting platforms, so I'm always cutting into the same layer, and then I turn it over for the next use. So here's my window, as I'll just reveal now, and this particular die leaves a nice little border around the outside, which I quite like. Now I've placed it on an angle just to give it a bit of an interesting look rather than straight up and down and square. Now I'm just arranging things here to see what they'll look like. So there's that plastic sheet for the window to house the shaker elements, and I'll use some foam tape later to lift that up against the background. The sentiment I'm going to use today is "You're out of this world" from this moon stamp set I've got off AliExpress. I thought this was quite appropriate because I'm going to be using some space elements. And I decided to place that stamp sentiment at the top of the window. And I'm just deciding that that's where I want to place it. And I've decided I want to heat emboss that in black. So I'm now going to bring in my We Are Memory Keepers precision press stamping platform. I'm just placing my white cardstock down with my shaker window already cut out of it. Using some washi tape to hold that card down. And then I'm going to place that sentiment strip that says "You're out of this world" at the top of that window. I'll close the door on my stamping platform to collect the stamp, press it down. And because I'm going to heat emboss this using embossing powder, I'm going to use an anti-static powder tool all over the card. And that's just so that the embossing powder only sticks to where I've stamped it. So I just use some clear embossing ink to ink up the stamp. And just checking that's made a good impression. And I'll just do that twice to make sure that it's nice and sticky, and we'll grab the embossing powder that I'll sprinkle on top of it. I just clean my stamp with a baby wipe and put the stamp to the side to put away when I've finished the project. I'm going to bring in some non-stick baking paper, and I just like to use this non-stick baking paper to sprinkle over the top of, to just layer underneath my project as I sprinkle over the embossing powder. So I'm just using black embossing powder today, and I like to just sprinkle on the top and tip it off and then tap off the excess. I'm doing that a couple of times to make sure I get good coverage. And the slipperiness of that non-stick baking paper means I can just use the fold in the paper to recollect it into my container. Now I've gone away and heat set that using a heat tool. As you can see, it's all nice and raised and heat set. Now it's time to attach the plastic window. Now this piece of plastic I just cut out of an old front cover of a presentation report, and I'm just going to stick it to my card front using double-sided tape. I'm just checking that I'm going to reach all of that. Just going to stick it down right, and I'll peel off the backing paper on that tape and then just place my plastic window over the top of it and press it down and give it a good rub to make sure it's stuck down correctly. I'm just going to have a look at how it looks with the background again, and I do quite like that. That again, I want to make this a shaker card, so I'm going to bring in my big roll of foam tape, which is here, and I'm going to place it all around that window, making sure I get it as close as I can to the edge of that window so that we don't lose any of our shaker elements. And very shortly I'll just jump ahead to where I've placed all that foam tape. And the next step is to peel off all the backing paper and reveal the sticky side of that foam tape so I can stick that stars and moons background to it. Again, I'll just jump ahead to when I've taken all that tape off, and I'm about to place that background, but before that I need to put my shaker elements in, which is going to be these glass beads. Now these glass beads, you can use whatever you like as your shaker elements. I'm just using these glass beads because it's what I've got in my stash and I have no other plans for them. So I've put my shaker elements down in my window, and now I'm going to place that stars and moons background down over the top of it. And press it down to make sure it sticks really well. Turn it over, check the shaking elements. That shakes well, cool, nice. And just to get things to the same level, I'm going to use some scrap card to fill in those gaps. So probably navy, and I ran out of navy cardstock in this case, so I used some black. But you won't be able to see it because the next step is I'll attach this note card front to a piece of black cardstock. But before I do that, I grab a black sentiment strip because I decide this is going to be a birthday card, and I'm just going to put this happy birthday sentiment and heat emboss this in silver. So again, close my stamping platform, grab the stamp, and use my clear embossing ink to ink up the stamp. Press it down. I'm going to do that a couple of times to make sure I get a good impression. Now I should have used an anti-static powder tool before I stamped it. You will see that I get a little bit of residue of powder around the sentiment because I didn't use that tool. So I've gone away, I've sprinkled the embossing powder on and heat set it. And now I'm going to add it to my card front. And you can see in the background of the sentiment that there is a bit of powder residue that stuck to it because I didn't use that anti-static powder tool. And just like the window, I decided to put it off on an angle off the corner, just making sure I get all of that sentiment on the actual card. Now I'm bringing in these die cut elements that I've previously coloured in and die cut out. This is from a space themed stamp set I bought off AliExpress. And I'm just arranging them and how I want it. And then I'll use some double-sided tape to stick them down where I've arranged them. And it does take a while to do them all, so I'll again skip ahead to when I've done almost all of them except that little earth image, because I want it on top of the sentiment strip. I decide to stick the sentiment strip down first, and again I'm just using double-sided tape to do that. So I just place that down, making sure I've got that sentiment on the card again. And why I need to make sure of that is because I need to cut off the excess using scissors. So I don't want to accidentally cut into the sentiment. So yeah, I'm just trimming that using my scissors. And then I'll come back with my double-sided tape to adhere that earth image on top of the sentiment strip. The last step is to adhere the black cardstock on the back so that it hides all the little imperfections of using the scrap cardstock. And then when you address the card and write your sentiment, you just use a white gel pen or silver gel pen. And that is how I made the Starry birthday shaker card. If you would like more information on this card process or to see other crafty things I'm up to, head over to my blog, melcrafting.blogspot.com. Of course, if you like what you see, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.